Well, when you defeated Tito, you even wound up spanking him literally in the fifth round.
That
I
was
mean,
hilarious.
you're the first guy to hold a championship in two weight classes. You know, they had put all their chips in on Vitor and then Chuck and then Tito, and one by one, you come clean them all out. But it feels like this is when the UFC really starts to level up into the mainstream. The Ultimate Fighter is going to launch on Spike TV. The Fertitas are doubling down on their investment. And I don't think MMA was ever the same. And you're right in the center of all that. Is that maybe the most exciting time in your career?
Well, it was certainly an amazing time in the career, and I think it was great to see the sport take a turn like that. Again, I think they were savvy enough to change the image, to run towards regulation. They were savvy enough and had the pocketbook again to get it on Spike TV when nobody would air our sport, and that changed the landscape for all of us. Now look at us. There's 3 or 4 fight promotions. Obviously, I'm working for the Professional Fighters League now. There's Bellator. There's a ton of fight organizations out there besides the UFC. It's a great time to be a mixed martial artist and be able to be a professional fighter and a professional athlete.
A lot of promotion.
But it goes back to that Ultimate Fighter changing the landscape. People had a misconception about who we were. They thought we were criminals and that we're crazy because we get in a cage and fight each other. And I think that reality genre vehicle gave everybody a bird's eye look at these athletes, their mindset, the intense training, and what we put into this sport. And it changed a lot of people's perceptions of who we were and why we do what we do.
Well, you talked about you were the light heavyweight champion. This is a great question, Randy. What made you want to come back and fight Tim Sylvia at heavyweight?
You know, Tim had come to the Team Quest. This was back in the Team Quest days when me and Dan Henderson and Matt Lindland and Robert Follis opened that gym there. And Tim had come out. This was before he won the title.
7 foot tall, right?
6'8". Yes. He was an aspiring heavyweight. I was fighting at light heavyweight at this time. He came out to train with us, to get some rounds in and spend some time wrestling and work with us. He stayed in my house, helped me. I was in the middle of a remodel at the house, literally helped me with the remodel. He was a great guy. I enjoyed spending time with him, but I tortured him in the training environment. And,
you had a mental edge over him, huh?
He was still really green, and I handled him pretty regularly in the training environment at that time. Now he went on in that next year to knock Rico Rodriguez out. I was standing next to Monty Cox in the dressing room when that happened. We were both jumping up and down. We were so excited for him. He was just a wide open fighter. He went out there to win fights, to knock guys out. And I liked him. You know, he didn't always come off as the most gracious guy. He just socially, the camera would come on and he would say some silly things. So the fans were on him pretty hard. And it became, the Andre Arlovsky, Tim Sylvia show for about 3 years there. They were back and forth and they knew each other so well. Those fights just weren't terribly exciting. And then Tim fought Jeff Munson. I commentated. One of my early commentating gigs was commentating that show up in Sacramento at Arco Arena. And it was like watching paint dry. It was a very slow fight. It was not very exciting. And, I had been retired for about 13 months. I was going through a divorce. This was after the third Chuck fight and just not feeling like myself. So I stepped away from the sport, was focusing on the commentating, got back into some grappling. And one of the guys that owned the car dealership, Joel Supernaut, he kept texting me, "You need to fight the Giant. I know you'd beat the Giant." That's what he called Tim. And he kept harassing me every other week. He'd send me another text. It happened to be his birthday. This was after that Sacramento fight. I was at dinner with him for his birthday, and he said, "You need to fight the Giant." And I'm like, "Man, take another shot of sake. What are you talking about?" But I got on my phone and I text Dana. I said, "Man, that fight was like watching paint dry. I could beat either one of those guys." And I was retired at the time. Dana called me. He didn't text me back. The phone rang. He called me. He said, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'd beat either one of those guys. I'd fight him. I'll come out and fight him." 3 weeks later, that fight was signed.
Wow, that was fast.
Yeah, came out of retirement to fight Tim for the heavyweight championship in Columbus, Ohio. 22,000 people.
I was there, Randy. It was
Right.
hot, man. You dominated the fight too.
Yeah, I'm glad I went that way.
Fight.
Oh, that's probably the closest I ever came to the one punch knockout, that first blow. But I'm glad it didn't go down that way, because I think everybody was questioning me at over 40 years old. What was I doing fighting this giant guy? I think it was 43, going on 44, if I remember right. I think, everybody thought I was nuts for coming back out and fighting him at my age. And he's so big. I mean, we look like Mutt and Jeff out there. And I'm glad it went that way. I'm glad it went all 5 rounds, and I was able to stay in control of the entire fight, rather than getting that one punch knockout and then saying, "Oh, that was a fluke. You got lucky."